The sign says no shirt, no shoes, but it's silent on the subject of pants. I'm Anthony.
I'm Eric.
I'm muted. I'm David.
Well, that just went
That
down.
was a good turn.
All right, let's do another take.
Take two.
I have something for
It's
the
not
very
doing 100 some episodes before we had to do a take two.
Well, you can all hear that at the end of the episode once it's put out. So, all right, here we go. The sign says no shirt, no shoes, but it's silent on the subject of pants. I'm Anthony.
I'm Damon.
I'm David.
I'm Kirby.
I'm
I'm
Eric.
Katie.
I'm Jim.
And then we have Eric.
Are we gonna have to go for a third take?
I thought I already said that.
That was a
Can you hear
Katera.
me?
Katie and
Eric, you're at the end.
See on Anthony's name,
I'm
he's got
Eric.
the list of order.
All right, we'll do another.
Take three.
Okay, here we go.
Okay, do we need to say out loud the order in which we're going? Make sure everybody's unmuted and ready to go.
So we have myself, Damon, David, Kirby, Katie, Jim, and Eric. And here we go.
Okay, now we
The sign says no shirt, no shoes, but it's silent on the subject of pants. I'm Anthony.
I'm Damon.
I'm David.
I'm Kirby.
I'm Katie.
I'm Jim.
and I'm Eric.
Welcome to issue number 132 of the Crimson Cowl Comic Club podcast. Each and every week we meet here through Zoom to talk about comics. We have a weekly review segment, which we're going to go all around the internet and talk about the books that we've been reading. And then over in the letters page, we discuss a question. This week's question will be, what comic book series or character did you end up liking that you never thought you would? So that will be discussed later in the show, so those listening and watching at home can start thinking of their answers. So we're going to kick it off here with our weekly reviews, and this was the first brand new comic I've read since the end of March. It is Ironheart 2020, number 1 of 2. This here is the robot revolution is in full swing, as in the Arnold Stark-funded crackdown on artificial intelligence. That means that Riri Williams and Natalie, the AI based on Riri's deceased best friend, are in for a world of trouble. Can they weather the coming storm together, or will 2020 tear them apart? Kind of like how it's teared the world apart, too. So it's great to... for the first comic that I read during this pandemic was about a robot uprising. So great, it fits right in with the tone. Riri Williams, Ironheart, she had a miniseries that wrapped up with 12 issues. Now she is getting this 2-issue run that is spinning out of Outlawed, where all the teenage superheroes are basically outlawed from being superheroes. That's a one-shot that came out about 60 years ago now, it feels like. But in real time, it was maybe 2 or 3 months ago. And now this is picking up her story. Natalie is her best friend. We saw that story in her series where Natalie was killed when she was a child, and now she is the AI for Ironheart, and we saw all that stuff in the previous series. Natalie is an acronym, so it's got a period in between each letter for name there. But the main part of the story is dealing with the fact that Riri Williams is actually kind of listening to the whole outlaw rule that's going on. Kind of knowing her character, it seems like she would be one that would probably rebel against it, and she wouldn't let that stop her from superheroing. But also she's experienced a lot in her short time of being a superhero. The Civil War II stuff with Thanos kind of leaving her shocked. She's been on the Champions team. She's had a lot of loss in her life, and I think she's maybe seeing this as a way to step back from being a superhero. now that the government has outlawed it. But this whole issue here is about basically there's a rogue car. The self-driving cars are now, basically, gaining independence, and they're part of this whole robot uprising as well. So while she's able to kind of stop that, she's kind of laying low because she doesn't want the police to find her. Her friend Xavier and then Natalie are both kind of talking to her. They're kind of assuming that she's going to keep being a superhero, but she's kind of sticking to the grounds, and she seems like she might be a little scared to kind of go up against the law when it comes to this. And but yeah, so it was a pretty good first issue back here, following Riri, playing in the continuity of Outlawed as well as Champions. But there's a pretty crazy last page, as they are meant to do in superhero comics, that really makes me excited for issue number 2. So this will be a 2-part miniseries, and then we'll probably see Riri show up. I think there's a new Champions book that's will be on the horizon as well. So this is part of the Iron Man 2020 checklist, which kicked off with Iron Man 2020, the Machine Man miniseries, Force Works, Rescue. There's a lot of one-shots in there. Iron Age, a bunch of different things there. Some of those are miniseries. We have I, Wolverine coming out sometime soon as well. So if you are following the Arno Stark Robot Uprising 2020, this is another chapter. All right, we'll move.
I said Remo Williams, not Riri Williams.
Oh, did I pronounce that wrong the whole time? Yeah, let me auto correct was wrong. So
But at least it got you to read a new comic. So.
yeah, exactly. Okay, let's jump over to Damon.
Okay, I was pretty busy this week, so I didn't get a chance to read too much. But I did get an order in from Coffin Comics, and one of them was a pre-order I did for the Lady Death Gallery Edition, number 1, which is just a book with images of Lady Death and different costumes and stuff. But the reason I pre-ordered it was the cover is Slave Leia.
Cool.
I went with the clean edition. There was a naughty edition, but I went with the nice edition because it had the normal colors, and it looks like she's on Tatooine, whereas the naughty edition was bluish and she was on a different planet. It looks like I got issue 36 out of 250, and I have it signed by Brian, who is the creator. I paged through it. There's some pretty cool images of her. I mainly got it just for the cover, but there's a variety. Like here she is, even on a nice chopper.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
So easy to read because there's nothing to read. It's just Lady Death in different costumes and poses. Like I said, I mainly got it for the cover, and then
The best part of Lady Death is the artwork.
Yeah.
For the articles. Oh.
Like here's her. I think these are probably some of the better pictures. And here's her as like a gunfighter in the Wild West.
Oh, that one's cool.
Yeah, and then the back kind of has the font of, like the old the toys, the Kenner packages.
Oh yeah, the card.
And that.
Star
And so
Wars.
I thought I'd just share that. It was a cool find. You had to pre-order it on May the 4th, I believe, is when the pre-orders went up.
You
And-
said that's out of like 200 something. Does that mean there's 200 some copies, or there's different variants, or?
There's 250 of this.
Oh, so
variant.
it is a pretty rare. Okay.
It was open for pre-orders, and they were only going to print as many as people pre-ordered. But there were different covers. There was like a Star Wars type of cover, in space, a homage edition. They do a lot of homage editions. The nice Slave Leia, and then the naughty Slave Leia. And however many people pre-order them, that's what the print one was. And I'm assuming they probably rounded up to the next, even number. So mine is numbered 36 out of 250. So it was pretty cool.
All right, excellent. Let's jump over to David.
All right. Now, here's one of those examples of something that's a comic book that has been turned into, in this case, a Netflix series. But there's a lot of Netflix shows, TV shows, movies that all have come from comics. This is one of the examples, though, where I had watched the show before reading the comic form. So what I'm talking about today is the Umbrella Academy. This is the first volume, trade paperback. So just curious, how many of you have watched the Netflix series and how many of you have read the comic?
I've read the comic and I've seen the pilot so far. I did like it, but I did read the comic.
I watched the
I've
first
also-
episodes, but I couldn't get into it.
Yeah, I seen some of the couple first episodes, but I got sidetracked. But I have read all the comics, so.
Okay. So I'm curious. So a lot of times, this is an example for me personally. I like the show, although I didn't get into it right away. I watched the first episode a while back, and then I kind of left it alone. But I decided to give it another shot, so I went back, rewatched the first episode, and so on, and I got into it, and ended up liking it, and then read the comic. It's not a good translation between the comic and the show. There are elements of it, of course, but they do a lot of different things.
One thing I should probably mention, though, you need to read Dallas, which is volume 2, the volume 2 trade paperback, because a lot of elements that I thought weren't in there originally, I didn't find until I actually read volume 2 Dallas. So there are a lot of elements that you're talking about probably happened in volume 2.
Yeah, but in the comic, there's things that you find out about right away, that are kind of a secret, and you don't find out about them until a few episodes into the show. So it's done a lot differently. They simplify some things because the comic is really out there as far as some of the things that are going on. So they strip it down for TV, but I think the TV version works pretty well for what it is. But yeah, in a lot of cases, I'm familiar with the comic, and then TV comes along or a movie comes along, and I jump into that. It's not the exception would be some of those things that I got into at an early age, where I watched like the Superman movies or the Batman TV show or all those cartoons and stuff that I grew up on, and then went to comics. But everything since then, I judge movies, I judge TV and everything based on how, what kind of a job they do representing the comic book origins. So it's unusual. I think this would be the first time since The Walking Dead that I actually saw the TV version of it first and then went to the comic. So definitely, a big difference though in how that works. Now, one thing is, if you look at the artwork in you look at the artwork in the comic, it's not any kind of like there's not really realism to this style. It's kind of this almost cartoony style to it. So that right off the bat, when you're looking at something that's a live action departure from something that's this style is a lot different. But it was interesting and entertaining in some ways, just alone to go back and check out the source material first. Sounds like a lot of people haven't really gotten into it, but potentially might, so I won't do a bunch of spoilers on this one. But I will say it's if you're going to do one and the other, I would almost say do the show first, just because it's done in a way where you find things out. The comic books, they're thrown at you right away, and so it kind of would spoil, I think, the TV show. Even though the TV show is it's different, there are enough differences where you could watch it and not know if it's going in the same direction as what they did in the comics. But either way, I enjoyed it. I thought this was entertaining. I enjoy the show. I think season 2 is slated for a July release, so not too far down the road. So I might have to. This one I was able to grab off the shelf here, and we have volume 3. I might have to order volume 2 and check it out so I can at least get the first 3 volumes and see how it goes from there.
Excellent. Let's jump over to Kirby in Space.
All right, you got Lost in Space. This is following the events of the 1998 feature film. Our story begins with the space family Robinson capsized on a strange planet with a broken ship and limited supplies when the wily Zachary Smith decides to go off exploring. He discovers his discovery jeopardizes their hopes of a return home and possibly even of survival. Zachary finds a alien in a spacesuit, takes the spacesuit, puts it on, and his body gets taken over by the alien being, and the story goes on from there.
Yeah. That's why I never wear alien spacesuits until they've been washed.
Smart.
It's an enjoyable story. I like where they went with it. I've always loved Lost in Space, but I cannot stand Dr. Smith. I know we're supposed to hate him, whatever. He's a character that has to be there for conflict and all that, but I still think he could have an excellent story if they just traveled around the universe Lost and run into different species instead of having that jackass on their ship. But
That would be Star Trek.
yeah, if you like the series, you like the new series, you like the old movie, and this is all with the same characters, and you got Joey from Friends as Don West and stuff, and Gary Oldman playing Zachary Smith. It's a fun, enjoyable story if you liked it at all.
Cool, cool.
And the Joey from Friends remark reminds me: has anybody seen the one that's going around like Facebook and stuff now with Ross from Friends?
No.
Yeah, Ross Al Ghul. Yeah, somebody did a picture of him as Ra's al Ghul, and they're calling it Ross Al Ghul.
That sounds right up Anthony's alley.
Yeah, I'd watch it. Let's get the Ross cut of Batman Begins. All right, let's jump over to Katie for our next pick.
All right, thank you. So today I read Gotham by Gaslight. I actually came to this series for the artist and ended up really loving the story. So the premise of the story is Gotham City in the late 1800s is being plagued by Jack the Ripper, and Batman is going to solve the mystery and catch Jack before he can go too far. This book's been around for a while. I really liked it. I liked it a lot. Like I said, I picked it up because I heard the artist Mike Mignola was on it. Really like his stuff, and I loved the story. I thought it was super interesting. I just like stories set in that time period. It was a really cool mystery. Like I didn't actually see the twist at the end coming, which was good. And Batman just felt a little bit lighter to me. And I know that's very weird to say in a story about a serial killer, but the current Batman always feels very miserable to me, where I'm like, I just kind of want to hug him. But this Batman felt like he, he had a little bit more to him than just his pain and his drive to fix things. He felt a little more well-rounded, and I liked that. That's a cool action figure, Kirby. So what else? Yeah, I liked it. The volume I had kind of a follow-up story to the Gotham by Gaslight in it as well, where it took place like a year or so afterwards. And Batman is once again trying to save Gotham City, this time from another supervillain. and that was really cool too. I enjoyed it. It was really worth my money. Definitely would read if you haven't. I think they made an animated movie of it, so I might check that out. But overall, it was really good. I enjoyed it quite a bit. It's been around for a while, so most of the scholarly already been done. So I can't really speak to that, but it was fun. I'd recommend picking up Gotham by Gaslight.
It sounds like it's its own self-contained story.
Oh, yes. Thank you very much for asking it. Yes, it is a self-contained story. I believe it was originally meant to be an Elseworld story, so I don't think it affects continuity a whole ton, and even if it did, it was 100 years before. So yes, it's meant to stand as its own story, and it comes from the Elseworlds line. Good question.
Maybe if you have the DC Universe app, the movie is available to stream on that.
Okay, yeah, I don't have that, but thank you for the tip. Maybe there's a free trial or something. I appreciate that.
Yep, I recommend it. The movie was pretty good.
Sweet.
I'll
Hey,
have to put that
is
on my
the art
list.
style similar, or?
I couldn't tell you. I haven't read the book.
Okay,
I only
nice.
saw the movie. I was waiting for. They originally were going to do an absolute edition of the book, and then that got canceled. And now they're doing a hardcover.
That'd be cool.
That's
Oh,
coming out
bummer.
at the end of the year, so I was kind of
Okay.
waiting for the hardcover. But I'm
Okay.
Sounds
definitely,
good. That makes sense. Yeah, I should. That would be a good one to own. I should point out I did pick it up digitally, but if you're looking to add to your collection, I'd say this is a good choice, and I think you'll enjoy having it in hardcover.
All right.
Good.
I'll jump over to Jim for the next pick.
All right, I have number 3, the conclusion of DCeased Unkillables.
Wait, Jim, is that a brand new comic you're holding?
It is
Whoa.
fresh off the presses this week.
Ooh, it's still kind of hot.
Yes, I was able to finally get to read something new, and this is good. I know there's a couple of you guys out there that are still waiting for your copy and haven't read it yet, but this was a strong finish to this book, and it goes in someplace you don't expect. Where they physically end up, you kind of expect because it's been happening in the DCeased line where they end up. But how they get there and what takes them there, that is a person who was really totally unexpected from me. And I really enjoyed how they brought that about. This Unkillables line was a follow-up to the original DCeased, which is where the anti-life equation infects not only technology, but it crosses over and infects people. So people watch their cell phones, and then they get infected, and then it spreads person to person like a zombie apocalypse. The ones who have survived are the villains who basically are dead or have some kind of super healing factor or whatever that prevents them from dying, such as Solomon Grundy, who's already dead, not Deadpool,
Dead Man?
Deathstroke,
Deathstroke.
who has the healing factor. Cheetah, I'm not sure what her deal was, why she was in there, but yeah, most of them are able to resist the anti-life virus. And they end up saving a house full or an orphanage full of kids with Commissioner Gordon. Eventually the zombies crash in around him, and this book tells you how they escape the orphanage and take them to the new haven for them, which, like I said, if you've been following the series, you can anticipate what that was. But the twist is who gets them there, and then at the very end, we have hope for a new series, apparently, which is no big surprise because it was released digitally this week as well, too. So, and that was... Oh, it doesn't have an ad for it. I did see ads for that series, but not in here. But yeah, DCeased Unkillable 3.
Cool.
It's a strong finish to that series.
And talking about new comics, as a follow-up to mine, I forgot to mention because I showed it on the iPad, is that the Ironheart 2020 is one of the half dozen or so miniseries that Marvel decided to put to digital first. So if you were reading the Ant-Man miniseries, number 4 is going to be digital only. Avengers of the Wasteland with number 4, Ghost Spider number 9, Ravencroft number 4, Marvel's Spider-Man, The Black Cat Strikes number 4, Hawkeye Freefall number 5, and Star number 4. All of those print orders were canceled. So if you do not know about that, those issues and the following issues will be available to purchase digitally. They will be printed in a trade paperback form, but at this moment, it doesn't sound like they're going to come out in physical single issue. So that's kind of a bummer, but if you want to continue on with those stories and don't want to rebuy the ones in the trade paperback just to get the couple that you missed, you can check it out on digital purchase as well. All right, then we will jump over to Eric.
Unlike some of you, I didn't get any new comics, so I've been digging out in my, my long boxes and bookshelves. I remember this one, which was Stories in the Flesh, which is both written and animated by Kren Chadney, an Israeli artist. It's a collection of stories, and the thing I like interesting is it focuses a lot on relationships, but puts it into physical manifestations. Like in one story, we see it's called Antoinette. Let's bring it out here. It's in here somewhere. It's a guy who likes this lady named Antoinette, but the thing is, she carries her head around.
Oh.
So we see weird things like this that, they're just passed off as, hey, yeah, it happens. And a lot of it is representational because, with the head being gone, you see, or head being off of her, you see that most of his attraction is purely physical, because I can't show it because, okay, this is obviously not one for kids. There's a point where they're getting physical, her head rolls off the bed, but he keeps going. So, if anything,
People are talking to her, and she's like, "Hey, eyes are down here."
Would be interesting, but when she gets drunk, I don't think she really notices. I mean, if few people you'd actually be able to say, "Yeah, the room is spinning." But then there's others where it definitely I think personifies toxic relationships, where in a town a nuclear bomb goes off. There's just one woman or one high school girl who doesn't make it to the shelter, but she seems fine. And the main character of the story, he falls in love with her. And, they share a nice romantic kiss where she's glowing. And as it goes on, she gets stronger, but, by him being near her, he basically dies of radiation sickness over time. So, I mean, I would say it would definitely be an example of a toxic relationship where, yeah, you think you're happy, but in reality, it's just damaging you. There's a lot of other stories in here. But I'd have to say that even your wife would probably like this. So if she ever gets a chance to find this, definitely think this would be up her alley. But yeah, this is something different. I just randomly came across it back when Fireside Books was still open, and I'm like, okay, don't know why it's in the manga section, but I'll take it. So yeah, definitely, if you like weird, or series or stories where weird things are just accepted and not really, questioned, this would be a good book for you. So.
Cool.
Again,
all right, my next brand new comic is going to be The Flash number 753. Oh, I had a wrong side there. Flash number 753. In this Flash Age interlude, the fastest man alive must find the Reverse Flash to stop Paradox's annihilation of the Flash legacy. But catching a time traveler is extremely difficult, and the Flash's quest to find Eobard Thawne takes him to a tragic moments in time he never thought he'd have to revisit. This here is I've been reading Flash since the rebirth here, up to, what are we talking, 80 some, close to 90 issues or so. What's kind of funny is that my knowledge of the Flash is this run as well as the television show. This is kind of revisiting basically the end of season 1, the moment of Barry trying to prevent his mother's death that is eventually that his dad is blamed for. So
And here, I thought the date that you were talking about was the date that they released the season finale of Lost, because he wants to relive that.
Paradox is the current villain here that Flash is trying to stop, and he needs help, and he realizes that the only way he's able to stop him is with the help of Reverse Flash. So there's a lot of time traveling backwards and forwards going on in here. It's as classic as a Flash story could ever be, just with all the time jumping and all the confusing elements of trying to disrupt time, all the stuff that Barry's always blamed for screwing up, potentially is going to happen yet again in Flash number 753. But what this issue concentrates on is the idea that he is not going back to that moment to prevent his mom's death this time, because we've been there, done that, and dealt with the repercussions and everything. So it's revisiting those moments, but finding a different solution to the problem. But yeah, this is always a lot of fun. It's really no pun intended, but it's a really fast-paced book. Every issue is it just seems like there's so much story in each of the issues that it's just the writers and the artists throughout the whole series is just one of the best ongoing superhero comics that I've been reading for the last couple of years. But yeah, once again, it has all the normal Flash elements that you would come to expect. A lot of awesome splash pages as they do on here. Very good story, and they really left you on a good note here, which is going to really gear up for this Flash Age story. So what happens when Barry revisits the moment of his mother's death, but has to do something different? That is Flash number 753. Then we're going to jump over to Kirby.
Yeah, we got the Space Giants. In 1993, I got 3 different autograph covers that have different artist-writer combinations on them. If you like the giant robot style, Godzilla type things, you'd like this. Reporter Tom Mora's son, Miko, gets a video message that says, "Tell your parents at 6 a.m. tomorrow, the mastermind Rodak will show you his power supreme." They sit there and he goes to tell his parents something's going on. They recognize the name. And there's Rodak, sort of like a giant, kind of looks like a giant vampire type, the way he's dressed up, but it's just a giant creature, demon. He came to them to use our press to get the word out, to tell Earth to surrender or Rodak will crush us for his pleasure, kind of like a Thanos. Yeah, different giants that are coming in. They're like golden robot giants that come in to start destroying the Earth. And then there's also a golden space avenger that comes to save the Earth. You got different types of creatures, like giant swamp creature. And the page 1935 here. They were numbered. Okay, I lost that one. But yeah, if you're into the giant creatures, you'll enjoy this story. It says it's a shiny, happy comic for kids. Enjoy on the back. From Boneyard Press. But yeah, check it out.
All right. We are going to jump over to Eric for the next one. and it looks like he might be out of the room at the moment. Eric, can you hear us? Otherwise, I will jump to my next one and we'll circle back. All right, I'm going to jump over to mine then while we wait for him. This one here, my next title is Archie, a celebration of America's favorite teenagers. This here is a hardcover book, which means Damon will finally love Archie because this is a nice hardcover. What this does, this was printed, I want to say maybe like 10 years ago or so. This is a great encyclopedia, book of knowledge for the creation of Archie comics. One of the cool things that I really dug in the opening is a Betty and Veronica kind of old library card that says this book belongs to. So that's just kind of a cool little like scrapbook type of image that's pasted there. This is going through the creation of Archie comics, starting with the original creators of Maurice Coyne, Louis Horace Silberkleit, and John Leonard Goldwater. Taking the initials from their names, they became the MLJ Comics, which eventually became Archie Comics. They had Pep Comics, which told all these different stories, but then they introduced the character of Archie into, I want to say, issue 22, I think it was. And yep, that's where Archie's first appearance was. And after bringing in this character, he pretty much, started selling really well, and it encouraged the company just to rebrand itself as Archie Comics. And that's where all of the other characters start rolling out. So this here kind of dips back and forth. I love the layout of this book. It kind of gives you a quick little biography of each of the characters, the main cast, the supporting characters. Sometimes they're superhero counterparts, your Pure Heart, the Powerful, and all the different characters they've done for the superhero versions. Goes into the faculty, so you've got your Miss Grundy, you got your janitors, your coaches, got your parents. But then it kind of jumps in and kind of takes a chapter at a time to focus on these creators. John Goldwater being the one that first brought the idea of Archie to artist Bob Montana, who was a young artist working for MLJ Comics, and immediately based off of John's descriptions, Bob Montana just started drawing these characters, and a lot of the characters and names and styles kind of were inspirational influences from people they've known or grew up with, and eventually created this all-American teenager character with all the other, Betty Veronicas, your Reggies, your Jugheads. But yeah, it's cool the way they're kind of scrapbooking all of this, and then there's a section where they're kind of going through some of the newsprint comics, which I do have 2 extra hardcovers for that are on deck to read as well. It does reprint the original short story, which I think is like 9 or 10 pages or so, which introduced Archie. It's cool just kind of seeing how all of this unfolded and what kind of influenced Archie and how it developed over the decades, and how artists would pass on to other artists, because then we would have artist Dan DeCarlo, who would essentially become known as the go-to house style of Archie Comics. Here's the classic 3 on a straw drawing that has been reinterpreted throughout the years by different artists. But when Dan DeCarlo came in, there was a point where he was told to kind of draw like Bob Montana, and eventually he just started drawing his own style that actually started selling covers, and then they brought him into doing the interior work. So it's a lot of cool stuff. They are reprinting some other random stories. They're showing the little Archie from back in the day, so you're getting some bits on that. You're really just seeing how vast and diverse Archie Comics has been since the very beginning, and still keeping to the core of these characters. There's a lot of different chapters on the artists and the writers that would come, including the one who I've frequently met over the last couple years, and I talked about it here at the club with artist Dan Parent, who is a writer as well. But there's a whole chapter on him that's covering how he kind of came in and how he kind of revolutionized another generation of Archie comics with being the creator of the Kevin Keller character, which is the first openly gay character in Riverdale. So it's really, this is just such a unique take on, or a collection of both comics and history lesson, basically rolled into one. Because I thought it was all just going to be straight reading, but it ended up just showing examples of other stories throughout the years and stuff. And yeah, I learned quite a bit. There's chapters on George Glatter, I think it's how his name is, who I think is the co-creator of Sabrina the Teenage Witch. So it shows the introduction of Josie and Sabrina as well. And then there's a whole chapter towards the end of just talking about all of the merchandise and all of the different calendars and buttons and the influence with animation and the Archies with the music and television shows, and talking about the made-for-TV movies, the To Riverdale and Back Again, which is a really hard movie to watch. If anyone's ever seen that, I think it was from 1990. I've watched it on YouTube, and if anything, I'll have to post it in our club group, but there is a Jughead rap in there that is deliciously awful. So I will have to post that for other people to check out. But yeah, they've got cover galleries in here. This book is just a gorgeous piece of work. This is all put together by Craig Yo. This is Archie, a celebration of America's favorite teenagers, from IDW Publishing. Awesome hardcover. So if you like Riverdale, if you like the classic Archie comics, and you want to learn more about it, basically all in this volume, going from 1930s to I think about 2009 or so. So yeah, there we go. Another Archie book in the books. All right, we'll move over to Kirby for, let me guess, another space-centric title.
Yes, we're going back to 1984 for Starriors. It's a 4-issue miniseries. It's basically AI beings that are controlled and abused by other AI beings while hoping a fabled being called humans will appear and save them. There were solar flares, so we built the AI units to take care of us. And we basically put ourselves asleep in the earth somewhere underneath a facility and let the AI units take care of everything while the solar flares were going on. And they were supposed to awaken us once everything was good to go, but apparently some of the AI units decided that they were the warrior bots. They were going to take over everything. They made the other AI units do all their bidding and build everything for them and stuff like that. You got little mazes in there to play with.
Ooh, for that Fig Newton cookies, huh?
Yeah, Oreo ones they got Fig Newton ones. One of the robots finds a human skull and they examine it after a confrontation, and that gets the mean AI units worried that the other AI units are going to get everybody against them, and so the heads of that start killing off the robots that are turning on them. They sit there and little Dazzler advertisement and stuff. They have power ring type things where they can take the conscious out of the robots or put the conscious back in after they wipe them out and destroy them, as long as they don't destroy their main cervical unit or whatever. Let's see, page 15 here. They have different fight scenes in here that were pretty shoddily done, but I forgot to mention last week with the Kato comics, just has beautiful, well played out fight scenes where you can see and feel every move as it's done. It was just so well done in there, but here it was done way cheaper. But it was a cheap comic back in the day, only 75 cents an issue. Yeah. More coloring pages in there. I was curious about this, if anybody has heard heard about this show back in the day, Pryor's Place. Richard Pryor apparently had a kids series.
I never heard of that. No.
Went on, but I always loved Richard, but I've never heard of that or seen that. It has your Jim Henson's Muppet Babies in there and stuff.
Oh.
Yeah, Dungeons and Dragons, Supercades, Pole Position, Prior. It's just all kinds of little things. But yeah, if you want to see a different take on basically what would happen if we built AI units and we let them take control of everything for us instead of just joining together and wiping us out, they ended up wiping each other out. Yeah, it was a fun story.
Cool.
Definitely enjoy.
All right, let's jump over to Eric.
Yeah, sorry about that.
No problem.
Got a limited series from 2004 called Identity Disc. It's rather different in the main characters in it. Essentially, it's like a heist story, but instead of, where one person goes around to random people and they're like, yep, I'm in. This is where we find Juggernaut, Sabretooth, Vulture, Deadpool, Bullseye, and Sandman all blackmailed by a strange individual. We don't know, doesn't really say who she is until it gathers them together. Says that she works for Tristram Silver, who's supposedly some type of boogeyman, even in the criminal world, that nobody ever wanted to oppose him because something would happen no matter what you did to him. And essentially what they're pulled together by this mysterious woman to get the identity disc from AIM. Supposedly it's a disc that contains the identities of every superhero who is active. So you got to get these 5 people, or 6 I should say, go into an AIM base. And I'm not going to spoil too much, but I do have to say at one point, few things are more conspicuous than Juggernaut wearing an AIM outfit. Yeah, one thing I liked about it is that every cover for it was made by a different artist. So I probably should have gotten the names of the artists, but you can look it up. So yeah, everyone, different artist. Mostly because it's where it shifts in tone between each issue. Side note, I didn't actually get the final issue until about a week ago when I ordered from Midtown. Because around 2004 was when there was a comics book store called Arcade Entertainment, where I got my comics, and 1 month they just up and disappeared. And I never got issue 5 until a few weeks ago. So, but yeah, this is definitely an interesting story because you never actually see these 6 characters together normally, unless it's a new Sinister Six. But to put Deadpool and Bullseye in the Sinister Six, I don't know. But either way, I know that it's currently available in a trade paperback if you don't want to try to nail down each and every issue. So. But yeah, it's definitely a good story that's different from pretty much what you would see today. So yeah, Identity is check it out, have fun.
Okay, before we, David, I can't hear Dave.
Sorry, it turns out I hit the button on the microphone. There we go.
Okay.
All right. The question that came to my mind is you're rattling off these villains and saying that they're blackmailed, and I'm thinking, how do you blackmail Sabretooth? How do you blackmail Sabretooth? What did he do that he doesn't want anybody to know about? Did he rescue an injured baby bird, nurse it back to health, and release it into the wild? What did Sabretooth do to blackmail him?
This is actually funny because at one point during an interrogation, they're because they never reveal what they did to blackmail Sabretooth. So they're well, what did you do? I don't want to say. And it's a major sticking point that nobody knows what they blackmailed Sabretooth with. And, it's until the last issue you find out there's a reason for that, and it makes sense. At least you think it does until the very end. And then you're like, well, wait a minute. So there is that question, what did she blackmail Sabretooth with? And I don't know.
He found a poor little bunny with its foot caught in a trap, and he released it.
After giving it a
I
couple
think he-
kisses.
Yes, he was cuddling with it. You know what? He sleeps with a teddy bear. Doesn't want anybody to know about it because that would kind of ruin his rep.
Oh, you're free to tease him about it if you want.
This is a perfect invite for any of the Marvel writers that are listening or watching this podcast to finally answer that question. How do you blackmail Sabretooth?
That could be a whole new Sabretooth miniseries right there. Just getting to the bottom of what he was blackmailed with.
All
right. We're going to have Kirby take us home. But before we do, I want to mention, give him a shout out for how awesome all these Zoom video comic clubs that we've been doing going into the backstacks, how each week Kirby has a theme. He's had zombies, he's had space, he's had ninjas, and he seems to really curate this pretty well. So I do.
That's two planned out.
So, yeah,
well, that'd be tough as Marvel Week and DC Week because those stacks are about that big.
Okay, well, you can take us home with the final two picks on our list here.
Yeah, first off, kids, remember, it's really worth reading your comic books because you could come across an ad where you could become your own comic book, well, win a job at Marvel Comics.
Ooh.
You never know what's going to happen. All right. We're starting out with the Silver Surfer Warlock Resurrection. I got 3 issues here. The Silver Surfer Warlock Resurrection. The Silver Surfer thinks about his loss of Shalabal. And you can correct me if I'm wrong, Anthony, with any of the names.
Nope, that is correct.
During his experience of the Great One, Pip tells him that Adam Warlock would like to see him. Drax helps Pip transport the Surfer to Monster Island to speak with Warlock. Warlock tells the Surfer that he has plans to resurrect Shalabal. In return, the Surfer must do a favor for Warlock sometime in the future. With the Surfer's help, the Soul Gem and the Mind Gem open a portal to another dimension. It's an all-out war against the legions of the Mistress of Death, and Warlock's plan turns out to be a cruel joke. Mephisto appears. I read these 3, and sadly, there must be 2 more issues that I got to come across and find.
There's actually one more, and I just ran to my stack because I knew I had extras. So this one has your name on it, so it's all yours.
Yeah, because I'm like, oh man, it's just such a disappointment. But yep. You're not gonna want to give it to me now, Anthony, because now I'm gonna disappoint you.
Uh-oh.
I like Silver Surfer as the bodysuit. I don't like when they draw him with the body where it's just totally all muscled out and stuff like that, because if you're going to go that route and then just give them that shiny little package, you might as well have drawn him like Dr. Manhattan, because the Silver Surfer doesn't really have powers to change his body figure around, I'm assuming, with the cosmic powers.
Power cosmic, you can basically do anything.
Okay, we'll let that fly then. So, did I mention that? And then the other one is Thunderbolts, Marvel's Most Wanted trade paperback. In the wake of tragedy, they appear on the scene as a beacon of hope to a world that had lost most of its greatest heroes. They called themselves the Thunderbolts, and they promised to carry on the proud tradition set forth by such brave and noble superpowered teams as the Fantastic Four and the Avengers. Citizen V, Meteorite, Mach 1, Techno, Atlas, Songbird, the world soon embraced them and accepted these Thunderbolts as heroes of the First Order. Little did the world know, however, that the Thunderbolts were actually wolves in sheep's clothing, supervillains disguised as new heroes. Meteorite was actually Moonstone. Mach 1 was really the Beetle. Techno was the Fixer. Atlas was Goliath. Songbird was the Screaming Mimi. And worst of all, their leader, Citizen V, was one of the most evil men on Earth, the notorious Baron Zemo. Now, for the first time, the true origins of the Thunderbolts in their original supervillain identities are collected in one volume with stories and art by some of Comicdom's greatest talents: Stan Lee, Jack Kirby, George Perez, Roger Stern, Roy Thomas, Mark Grunwald, Sal Buscema, with excerpts from the original Thunderbolts, proposal by writer Kurt Busiek, and the original characters designs by artist Mark Bagley. This is an invaluable addition for Thunderbolts fans, old and new.
Yeah,
and now, I don't know if, what's that?
I was gonna say it's a pretty impressive list of names you read off there. So
Yes, it's a very, very great collaboration of people in here. Sadly, I'm looking for someone who is into the Thunderbolts to tell me that I'm wrong by saying these characters don't even need to. I'm glad, because now I have a lot of comics I don't have to read, because I was not thrilled with the Thunderbolts characters at all. They just didn't grab me in any way, shape, or form. I read each individual story. I like the Hulk story the best. But
I haven't read the Thunderbolts that much. I don't know much about them.
nothing about these characters until I did it. But that's the reason I wanted to read it. I'd get a little bit of every one of them in there. But is there anybody that knows them more? All right.
I know a bit about them. I haven't really read too much of their stuff, but I'm familiar with the whole story. You know, the Baron Zemo and his other group of villains pretending to be heroes, and then as it goes on, some of these villains decide that they want to remain heroes, and they keep going even after, you know, everything ends with Zemo.
Yeah, it's like their abilities and stuff, they just weren't that. I mean, I don't even know. I was never a fan of the Fantastic Four, but even the Thing, I mean, he's a giant rock. Does water really affect him? In the one issue, the guy was going to dump some hot coffee or something.
Maybe if he immerses himself in it.
What's that?
Maybe it'll affect him if he gets immersed in it. I don't think he swims very well.
In the one episode, the guy was going to throw like a hot soup on him, and Johnny Flame or whatever, he's like, he quickly absorbs the heat so the heat doesn't affect him. It's like, oh no, a giant rock's going to get burnt by some boiling soup. I mean, I don't understand.
Now, what you could do is you could get him wet and then freeze him. You know, because then, you know,
the guy that
water gets in there, freezes, and it, you know, would potentially bust him apart.
Yeah, the guy that threw it at him didn't have no ability to do anything like that. It's like, it's basically the Beetle that can lift things up, and he's got metal wings and this really heavy bodysuit. I don't know. The stories were good. I mean, Stan Lee, of course, writes a good story and everything. I just could not get sucked in. I was so happy to be done with it.
Yeah, and that'll happen sometimes too.
I can't like them all. So.
Yeah, and I'll go through certain books, and you know, I read a Marvel team-up book that this week that is actually Spider-Man, Gambit, and Howard the Duck. Spider-Man Gambit was in one story, and Spider-Man Howard the Duck were in another story. And I really dug the Gambit story, but I was waiting for the Howard story to come in. And when I actually got to that part, the backup story of Howard really wasn't that entertaining. And I just was kind of flipping through it real quick towards the end, because I'm like, yeah, this ain't, you know, entertaining. So it's bound to happen.
Yep. Yeah, I still got to read them, so I might as well review them. So that was a pretty thick one, damn it. That's a lot of words. Stan likes to write.
Well, you earned yourself a treat. So, do you want a vampire drawn for you at all? I can.
Yeah, sure. What the heck?
Okay, it's done. Done. Okay, that will conclude our weekly reviews. We're going to move on to the letters page. All right, saving the audio. And recording, and we're going to jump right back into it. Here we go. Welcome to the letters page, everybody. We're going to talk about the question of the week, go around the internet, and give our answers. This week's letters page question is, what comic book series or character did you end up liking that you never thought you would? This is the one I picked for it. I dipped back into, it was 2012, the Before Watchmen series came out. Now, I watched the Watchmen movie when it came out. I then read the Watchmen graphic novel collection afterwards. I enjoyed both. I wasn't enriched in the whole thing. I just enjoyed it basically. But then the Before Watchmen, once DC was starting to make use of the property, they started doing a bunch of miniseries. And I got, the first couple issues of each one, kind of tested the waters, and I like Dr. Manhattan and Rorschach, so I got those ones, really dug them. But the Ozymandias, or Ozymandias, however you want to say it, that was the one that I was least excited for, but I was going to give it the old college try anyways, and especially since I had the awesome creative team of Len Wein and Jay Lee. So went into the Ozzy book and wasn't expecting much. And by the end of all the Before Watchmen series, it was by far my favorite one. It did such a good job of taking this villain character and you're seeing his upbringing. It's kind of what the Thanos Rising series that Jason Aaron wrote did with the Thanos character. And you saw him in his childhood, and you saw all the stuff that led him to become the villain that he eventually became. And the art by Jay Lee is just absolutely phenomenal. Whenever I see a variant cover from him, I'll grab that even if I'm not reading the book. And you can always tell when it's a Jay Lee cover. And then you have Len Wein, the co-creator of Wolverine and Swamp Thing. So I've always liked Len Wein. And back in like 2000, oh, actually, it probably wouldn't have been too far after this. So maybe like 2013 or 14, Len Wein was at the C2E2 convention in Chicago. And here I am meeting the co-creator of Swamp Thing, one of my favorite characters. And guess how much I talked about Swamp Thing with Len Wein? Zero, because all I did was talk about this Before Watchmen Ozymandias book. And I could really tell from Len that he probably didn't have a lot of people coming up because he'd be like, hey, Wolverine, Swamp Thing, Storm, all that kind of stuff, giant size X-Men. But I could see that he was just kind of really taken aback, being like that someone was just kind of gushing about Ozymandias. And it's one of the books that I got signed by both him and Jay Lee at separate convention appearances. But it's one that like I said, it was the least I was excited for. Ended up buying all 6 issues because it was fantastic. So that is my pick for the question, is the Before Watchmen Ozymandias from Len Wein and Jay Lee. Damon?
Looking at my shelf, I'd have to say maybe 2, but the one that really surprised me was actually Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Well, thank you, Kirby. I never read any of the comics. I always thought it's kind of childish, I wouldn't be that interested or anything like that. And I listened to Kirby more than I should, and I bought the first book.
You gotta quit that.
Yeah, I know.
I haven't disappointed yet.
Yeah.
Well, I haven't heard coffee.
I read through the first volume, and it actually hooked me in. It was a pretty good story. The art was fun. Brought back a lot of memories from the movies and stuff when I was a kid, and it really surprised me and opened my eyes to give other things a chance. That's the one that surprised me the most. The other one, I guess, the runner-up would be Berserk, but that's the manga, and that's because I didn't know if I'd like manga or it being black and white. I didn't know how I'd feel about that, but that hooked me in as well. I was real surprised with that. So those would be my two picks.
Cool. David?
I really have been struggling to think of anything. I mean, it's far more common for me to expect to like something and be disappointed by it. Because I don't normally read something about a character or a book that I don't think I'm going to enjoy. So yeah, I have a really tough time with it. The only thing that comes to mind that would be close would be something where it's a character that I didn't really care that much about at first, and for whatever was reading, and eventually liked him. And I think a lot of people kind of share those feelings about that particular character, and that would be Wally West as the Flash when he replaced Barry Allen. Wasn't a great character, wasn't very likable. There were a lot of problems with him, and just he didn't seem to be a great replacement for the Flash, and a lot of people were upset about it. And I know I've kind of talked about this before, but it's the same thing with me. I ended up with a bunch of Flash comics with Wally West as the Flash, and because I had them and I had gotten them cheap or free or whatever, I read through them, and as I went, I started to like the character more and more. And a lot of people that I've talked to that were Wally West fans didn't start out as Wally West fans, so it seems to be pretty common. But over time, he was written better, the character matured, and became a better character. And it got to the point that, by the time they were bringing Barry Allen back, nobody wanted Barry Allen back anymore because everybody liked Wally West as the Flash. But that's about the closest I can think of it. There's nothing really that I can think of, like a book or a character or anything that is like, I'm not going to like this, but I guess I'll read it anyways. And then, wow, this is really amazing. Usually, like I said, it's the opposite. There's something that I think is going to be great, and I'm disappointed by it.
Yeah, good answer. Let's jump over to Kirby.
Well, Squirrel Girl got me interested in Galactus. I want to read some more with him in it. See if I still enjoy him as much as she got me into it. But it's like in the last probably 2 years, I've been kind of liking Loki a little more, Yondu a little more. When you talk about manga, Shadow Lady was a surprise to me. I didn't expect to enjoy that, but I'd say the one I'm most interested in now that I was never really interested into was Dum Dum Dugan. He's got me wanting to read more and more, but sadly the past couple things I read, including this Thunderbolts one, he was kind of more of a jackass in it, so kind of pushed me back away from him a little bit, but I was enjoying the more comedic Dum Dum, so, especially with the Howard the Duck version. But yeah, those would be mine.
Okay, Katie.
All right, so my choice was The Walking Dead. No hate against it or anything. Obviously, it's really popular. I knew people liked it. I just had no interest in it. Like, I'd never watched the TV show or anything. I still haven't. But I got the first volume for $5 and really loved it, and then started reading more from there. So that was a really pleasant surprise. I'm not that into zombies. I didn't know how a black and white comic would be, and I really liked it. I think it's more of a story about humans than it is about monsters. Although sometimes the humans are monstrous, and that's part of the point. But it was money well spent, and it's been a good time. So, Walking Dead.
Good answer.
Thank you.
Jim.
Well, like David, I basically buy a book because I expect that I'm going to like it. I'm not going for anything that, this is going to be crap. I'm going to read it anyway. But there are a couple of series that I bought for the name alone. The one that really I really enjoyed more than I thought I would, and wish it still was going on, is called Lark's Killer. It was written by Bill Willingham, who was the creator of Fables, which is why I bought that book. And it kind of like just disappeared after 10 issues, and I just wish it would come back. Another one answer that I thought of was not a book, but a character who I initially did not like and is now starting to grow on me, and that is Damian Wayne. I really did not like Damian Wayne when he first brought him out. I'm still not the greatest fan of Damian, but
With
he is
exception
getting
of the
to be
back
more of a.
tattoo. With
I'm sorry?
exception of the back tattoo that you got of Damien.
Oh yeah, that of course. I mean, then that's just because his mom put it there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm getting to be more sympathetic and appreciative of Damien as well.
Very good. All right, Eric, bring us home with this.
No, it's not the Punisher.
Wouldn't that be great? As if like you were so against reading the Punisher and that it
I
became.
hate the Punisher.
I totally thought I was going to
Every
hate
issue I like, damn it.
Yeah, I hate to sound like a broken record, but like David and Jim, I really can't where I bought it and I was like, this will be okay, but then ended up really liking it. Normally I've gotten good recommendations in the past. I've only had the opposite happen once, but yeah, I wish I could give some good, but I think the only thing I can think of would be League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, because I saw that god-awful film first. I don't know if anybody remembers that. It was just...
I thought the movie was fun.
Fun? Well, maybe if you're drinking a lot. I mean, I didn't like it because, I felt that Sean Connery ended up carrying the entire cast, and it was the movie that made him quit acting. Because before he had turned down roles in Star Wars, and previously he turned down the role in Theoden for Lord of the Rings, and he thought, I'm not turning down any more roles. And then he gets that. And then he's like, okay, I'm done. But yeah, the books, on the other hand, because the characters, they're able to get a lot more depth. I mean, you get to see...
I got some of the books.
And you find Mina Murray. I mean, they call her Mina Harker. She's not a vampire. I mean, yes, she obviously got bitten, but she's not a vampire. And it was good because there's a little irony that they're League of Extraordinary, and they're led by a woman who had no powers. So, but yeah, I liked it because you got to see that the characters, they were a lot more flawed. They weren't just, yeah, I'm here, I have all these powers. But yeah, and then, so yeah, if I have to say anything, it would definitely be League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, not because I didn't like Alan Moore, but because, that movie just left a god-awful taste in my mouth.
I liked it.
So,
I hated it.
I'm sorry. I don't
But
do
I
offend you.
can actually look forward to the books.
Yeah, the book, but yeah, but you get much more because of what you get to see with the character. If you haven't read it, let's just say there's an interesting love scene between Mr. Hyde and Holly Griffin's Invisible Man. But that's in the second volume, so definitely check that out. It's not explicit, but
Books are always better than a movie.
you won't forget about it, let's just say.
Okay, we do have a phone-in submission here from club member Brad. He starts, and Anthony is going to hate it, Silver Surfer. For like 25 years of my life, I thought he wasn't really anything special, fine as a supporting character or a plot device for larger cosmic stories, but Dan Slott and Mike Allred's changed that all around with their run on Surfer. That may be one of my favorite series ever. I concur. Not the first half of his statement, but the back half of his statement. So there we go. That is the answer to the letters page. And that will conclude this issue of the Comic Club. Once again, the comics are slowly starting to come out, so check out your local retailers and your local comic shops. Check out where you can pick up books, some that are offering curbside pickups. Some stores are now opening where you are required to wear masks, or you can have like 5 to 10 people in the store. So check out the regulations and practice social distancing and all that stuff to go get your comic books. And yeah, so this coming week here, we are getting a new previews catalog. So we are going to find a way to, we're all probably going to get a copy of that. There are some versions you can get online as well, but we will plan to kind of do those spotlights in the news segments in the upcoming weeks, where we'll cover Marvel and DC, as well as the independent catalog. But things will be a little different as we catch up to a regular publication status for comic books. So check that out and get your details and set up your pull list with your local shop or shop of your choice. Okay, so I think that will do it for this issue of the Crimson Cowl Comic Club. This whole time, I've been a slime puppy.
I've remembered to be unmuted.
I've been anti-social distancing.
Happy World Turtle Day. Cowabunga.
I'm from the future.
I'm a goblin.
I got nothing.
To be continued.